Hey everybody, welcome to On the Edge. This is Rayanne Thorn Krueger. I host and produce this live stream, and it's been a great joy for me to do this and a great, phenomenal education. I have devoted this particular live stream to diversity for the last 14, 15 months, I think now. So I'm very excited to introduce you to Alyse Dunn, Alyse with an S. I want to make sure we get this right because I have failed at remembering that it's an S, but I will never forget that again, Alyse. Thank you for joining me, Alyse. I'm really excited to learn about your journey, what you're doing now, and how you're helping others. So why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. So, yes, my name is Alyse with an S, Dunn. And I am the founder and CEO of a tech startup called CareCopilot. Our mission is to help take some of the stress out of taking care of aging loved ones. And when I'm not working on CareCopilot, I am usually down at my local dojo practicing my jujitsu. I'm still pretty terrible,
Wow.
but I think I'm getting better.
That's amazing. I wish I had the body to still be able to do that kind of thing. I really envy those that can kick that high. I used to be able to. I used to be really limber and enjoyed it. So, how exciting for you! That's how long have you been doing that?
Oh gosh, a couple of years now. So I actually think I'm about to get promoted to the next belt level in the next few weeks here. Fingers
Wow.
crossed. That's certainly my stress relieving activity. I feel like that keeps me young there.
That's amazing. I send positive energy that there is never an injury as a result.
I have had
of-
one, but it wasn't too bad and healed. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Well, stay well through that. Let's before we jump in to talk about CareCopilot, I want to talk about your and we're going to have you back on the show to talk about this. But you are a Black female, clearly, and
Yeah.
have worked in technology, and I think you have a very interesting past employer. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my last role before starting CareCopilot was at Venmo. I was a senior software engineer at Venmo. At the time that I joined Venmo, actually, I was the only Black female software engineer at the company of the several hundred engineers that they had. They did get a few more by the time I left, but I was a little bit of a rarity. But Venmo was a fantastic place to work. I really liked working at Venmo a lot, and they gave me the best training of my technical career as a software engineer.
That's amazing. And so, just to touch on that briefly, did they offer additional training for you, or was it just getting in and digging and working and collaborating with other engineers that helped you grow in your own career?
Yeah, absolutely. So, not sure whether or not they still do this because I've been gone for about 2.5 years now. But at the time that I joined Venmo, they were, entirely in person. There was a little bit of work from home. You had that option, but they would pair you with a sort of buddy who would sit right next to you
Wow.
and help look at your code, help dissect the code. And his name was Abby, and Abby was fantastic. He was my buddy. And yeah, he worked with me one on one. And yeah, again, best training of my technical career. I ended up writing really high quality code that about 50 million people and counting are still using to this day on their phones.
That's an amazing an amazing legacy. So congratulations on that. And then you left. You left Venmo at the height of your tech career, at the height of Venmo's popularity. I mean, my husband just Venmoed our granddaughter some birthday money just this morning, and from the bedroom, not like we didn't have to log into anything, just held up the phone and did it. I mean, it's like a great technology in particular for the youth of today that really enjoy using it. I'm going to say that I use it all the time. So not
I
just
still
the
do
youth,
as well. Yeah.
not just the youth. So you left Venmo at basically at the height of your technology or engineering career to do Care Copilot. Tell us a little bit about why you left and how Care Copilot became a passion of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in short, I have one sister. Her name is Lisa. We're Elise and Lisa.
Oh my God.
And yeah, our parents thought that was cute.
Yeah.
Um, and in short, we took care of both of our aging parents one right after the other, for a
Oh,
total of 8 years before they both passed away. So we were in it for 2 presidential terms. Our dad had multiple sclerosis and diabetes. Our mom had Alzheimer's. And we were really in the thick of it with helping navigate their medical needs, their legal needs, their financial needs. And they both ended up passing away. And in the course of those 8 years, we never quite figured it out. We never found anything that made that whole caregiving experience any easier. And
yeah.
so I left my role as a senior software engineer at Venmo just to build a digital solution that could make that caregiving experience easier for others.
Wow. And I can speak from personal experience that it is one of the hardest things I've ever done. I cared for my bonus mom. She was my first boss. She had no children of her own, and when her primary caregiver, which was her husband, passed away, surprisingly passed away. We all thought that she would go first because of her health and concerns and medical issues that were ongoing. That he would outlive her. And so when he suddenly passed away and she was alone, my husband and I brought her into our home to provide care for her. And she lived with us for a year. It was the hardest year of my life for a number of reasons. And I'm sure that had I had CareCopilot on my side, it would have been much easier and I wouldn't have felt alone. Luckily, I found some groups that I could ask questions in and that kind of thing. But interestingly enough, I don't think that we as a people think enough about this topic, about a time in our lives when we're going to have to care for aging parents or aging friends or individuals that don't have the resources that some people in this country have or around the world have, or we don't have a social construct like different countries where everybody just lives together, right? The families just live together and it's expected. And it's, not everybody is working big, heavy jobs or leaving their home or working in the home like we do now. I mean, that's part of the problem too. While it can be helpful to not have to leave your home and be caring for a parent in your home, it also divides your attention in the home from your work and from your life. I lost a lot of time, social time. I didn't have time for my friends. I didn't have as much time for my children. I didn't have as much time for my husband. And it put a strain on all of those relationships as well. So caring for your parents, you saw a need for this. So let's dive in and tell us what CareCopilot is, and how it will help.
Yeah, absolutely. So CareCopilot is primarily serving families in New York City and the surrounding area right now. And as you mentioned, yeah, it's caring for an aging parent or spouse or anyone can be so demanding. And don't you just wish you could have duplicated yourself back when you were in the thick of it? And
Yeah, it was really hard. It was in the height of COVID also, so
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what CareCopilot does right now, again, primarily for New York City families, but additional, geographies to come, is we provide families with some free content and community so that they can connect with other people who are doing the same and learn the answers to some questions that they might not even know to ask, like different questions to ask aides if you're thinking about bringing an in-home care aide into the home, or the different aging day centers near you that
yes.
are often free or low cost that provide meals and socialization for seniors. So CareCopilot provides content and community for free for all families. And for families who need a little bit more help, who wish that they could have duplicated themselves, they can also pay for a monthly subscription for a human care co-pilot to help them with some of those logistical challenges, like picking up the prescription from the pharmacy or
Oh,
going
wow.
and touring the senior communities in person. I even attended a meeting with one client. She was meeting with an elder care attorney, and really needed someone there who would know what questions to ask an expensive attorney who pays by the hour so that she could make sure that she got out of there with all of the information that she needed. There's that option for families who need that additional help as well.
It's such a strain on everything, right? And I don't think people anticipate, first of all, they don't anticipate that once they get done raising their children, or in your case, you're very young caring for your parents. Once you get done, now it's time to take care of yourself, right? And then all of a sudden you have parents that need help and that haven't really thought about this. For me, it was all of the strain on my resources, but one of the biggest strain was physically, right? My bonus mom had fallen a couple of times, and for me, when I was alone with her, my husband wasn't around or traveling for his work, trying to get her up off the floor by myself was really a strain on my body physically, right?
Mhm.
And also, I just love that you talked about prescriptions, because it was every week I was picking up new prescriptions, and my business faltered. My life came to a standstill. And when we offered to bring her to us, it was a purely unselfish, but also selfish, because I got to spend time with her and care for her. Unselfish thing to do, not realizing the strain it was going to be. And I think so many people aren't ready for that strain, and that can impact your relationship with your loved one also. You might be impatient and angry, especially in particular if there are memory issues also, and you have to repeat things over and over again, or they become stubborn or hurt when you buy, or not when you buy, but when you employ a caregiver to come in. It was really hard. That was really hard, just speaking with my loved one about, I'm going to hire additional help. It was very hard. And so having a resource like CareCopilot, where you can be helped on what things to say, how to broach this subject, because it's hard on your loved one also, right? All of us, the first feedback I got from my loved one was, I don't need a babysitter. I'm in my 80s. I don't need a babysitter. And she just cried, sobbed, big tears. And so having these resources to help talk people through the different parts of caring for somebody that's aging and is an invalid and requires 24/7 care is so important. Do you have any stories you can share that talk about what CareCopilot has provided so far, and where you want to see CareCopilot go in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're totally right. Most families do not talk about these things in advance. Those conversations are hard and they're scary, and it's challenging for even one party to be ready to opt into that conversation, much
Right.
less both. And you're right, that babysitter word does come up often. And it's something that I speak about with clients often, which is, how do I have that tough conversation with my loved one about their care? How do I, pick my loved one up off the ground without breaking my back in the
Right.
meantime? And so you asked, sort of what Care Copilot hopes to provide and what we're doing and where we're going. It really comes down to answering questions just like that, especially since when you're in the thick of it, it can be hard to even take a step back and ask yourself, is there an easier way to have this conversation? Is there a device that can help me pick my loved one up off the ground when it's physically challenging for me? There is. It's called a Hoyer lift, and you can
Right.
usually get part of that covered by insurance. Or topics like, how do I have that conversation with my loved one to bring an in-home care aid into the home? I work with clients on that as well. I wrote a blog post on it. It's on the website. There are different techniques like introducing them as a friend, introducing them as a personal assistant. That's very fancy. We're getting you a personal assistant.
Oh, I like that better.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
getting
Who wouldn't
help.
love an
I need
extension?
help. I'm getting help, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so being able to provide that, high level guidance to families on the website for free, and then more granular assistance for families, who want that in-person help. That's really where we're at and where we're going.
That's great. I am so excited to learn more about what CareCopilot is doing. I wish it had been a resource for me, but now I have friends that are experiencing what I went through in 2020,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
it came to about 10 months in, and I realized I can't do this anymore. She had fallen 6 times, and I had gotten her on a really great regimen where she was walking every day with her walker. We found the right kind of walker that didn't put additional strain on her back. She's somebody that had 7 different back surgeries, right? So, and every person as they age is going to have different things wrong with them, whether it's diabetes or the memory care, if they're required to have memory care. And I learned a lot about that too, where it was hard for me to lie. It was very hard
Mm,
for me, right, to lie, and that's one of the techniques that you have to learn as a caregiver, is to say things that don't upset your person that you're caring for, and how to say them. And it was very difficult for me to fudge the truth with her, and just to keep the peace, or not to upset her too. I mean, it's not even about keeping the peace, it's the trauma that it causes her to have to relive certain things, or to um, try to help her understand her position. And she often said, "I'm ready to go back home now," right? And the truth was, she was never going back home. And even now I face this with her being an assistant. She's still living in assistant living, is on hospice now, but every time we speak or when I see her, it's, when can I come home? Right? The
yeah,
happiest time in my life was living with you. When can I come home? And I love
yeah,
hearing that. At the same time, it's heartbreaking.
yeah, I absolutely get that. To tell you a quick story, my father passed away before my mother did. Dad died in 2014, mom died in 2020 in the pandemic. Again, from Alzheimer's, not COVID. That's just
Yeah.
the year that it took her. And my parents were divorced, but they stayed really close friends. Neither one of them ever got remarried. And after our dad died in 2014, it's the darndest thing. When we had the funeral, my mom gave a beautiful elegy. She was so articulate and spoke about my father so lovingly, and she was so
Oh,
present. She looked fabulous. And it was not even 2 weeks after we had buried my father that she started to call my sister and I and say things like, "Huh, I haven't spoken with your dad all week. What's
oh,
going on over there?" Or, "Hey, your dad hasn't dropped by in the last, month or so. Have you talked to him?"
wow.
And to your earlier point, I didn't know then that when someone is succumbing to Alzheimer's, you're not supposed to remind them about loved ones who have passed away because they grieve over and over again.
Right, right.
And, in retrospect, I should have said, "Oh, dad's just working, dad's doing this, dad's doing that." It wasn't until I started CareCopilot and started getting more educated about Alzheimer's, dementia, and other diseases that I realized how to properly navigate that.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's so much that you don't know until you're in the thick of this. There's no playbook for this stuff. There's no guidebook for this. Unlike other life milestones like buying a home or having a child, where there's so many books and blogs and influencers who can show you the lay of the land, there's just no playbook for this. As you mentioned, every older adult is unique. For the most part, most 3-year-olds are pretty similar within a narrow range, unless you have a special needs child. Dissimilarly, all 83-year-olds can be very, very different, even 83-year-olds with the same diagnosis. And that's where families start to need these, specialized and customized resources and support.
Yeah, I just can't tell you how important the work that you're doing is. And so tell me about the decision to do this, because you have this amazing career in technology. You're working for one of the most well-known tech companies in like breaking ground, right? It's a breaking ground tech company. How do you make this decision? And understandably, it was trying to care for your parents at the same time you probably ached to have to go to them for advice on this, but also ached to have a resource that would help you. So how did you come about deciding, okay, I need to do something? A lot of people are driven to produce or create something based on experience, and it sounds like this is the similar thing for you. So tell me how about that decision, and then I want to talk about how CareCopilot can help employers to understand how they can assist their employees.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, even before my last remaining parent, my mom, passed away, I had an appetite to build something that would help other people who are navigating caregiving, but I truly just didn't have the capacity. And so, to be honest, Rayanne, I did get pretty lucky at the beginning of CareCopilot in a few different ways. And it's interesting that you ask, because this is a story that I don't often get into. As you
Good.
know,
I'm
I've
glad
done
you're
many podcasts, but we've never gotten into this story. So, mom died in March of 2020. That was my last remaining parent. I was working at Venmo, which is owned by PayPal.
right.
During the pandemic, people got really squeamish about touching physical money. And because of that, PayPal's stock price quite literally tripled overnight, tripled.
Oh,
And as a longer term Venmo employee, I had some of that stock, and I had a
oh,
lot.
great.
And so after mom died, I already knew I wanted to build something. I all of a sudden had like a little bit of a lump sum of cash that I could use to sort of leave my job and tinker at this for a few months and see what happened. And so I cashed that out. That was what I needed in order to get started. And then it was off to the races from there. And so it was, I think about that and I am fully, fully aware of how fortuitous that was in terms of timing, and how privileged I was to have had that play out that way. I fully acknowledge that everyone doesn't have the luxury of working for a big fancy tech company where they can cash out some stock and get a little bit of savings together to go and tinker on something that they're really passionate about. But that's the reality of, my last remaining parent was gone. I all of a sudden had the, time capacity to work on this. And then I got lucky with, the pandemic a little bit there, had the financial capacity to give this a chance. And then it was off to the races from there.
What an incredible way to describe that. I don't know that a lot of people would say it was a privilege
Absolutely.
after caring for your parents like you did. And then many people might choose to go on a long vacation or, or invest in themselves in some way. And you saw a need. You decided to pursue that need at the same time fulfilling something in yourself. I assume that this has been very fulfilling for you to, and satisfying to see the creation that you birthed. Right. This is such an amazing, first of all, model and how it helps other people. So I don't like you calling it a privilege, except that you feel that way. So that's amazing. I think that what you have chosen to give to others, right, is beautiful. And like I said, I have, my father died when he was just 65, so I didn't have a chance to care for him. My mother is 87, my bio mom, and I love her very much. She's my mother. This was just another woman that was important to my life that I cared for. And I will be tapping into the resources. She lives on her own still, but she is adamant that she remain independent. And we see things starting to happen. She's starting to fall. She's having memory issues. She's recognizes that she shouldn't drive at night. She shouldn't be driving at all. Her reflexes aren't as good as they could be. So I'm thankful for this resource to help me through that. My sister is very involved with the assisted living and nursing home industry. She's the head of the National Association for Activities Professionals, and I want to introduce her to CareCopilot. And I think that she could be a good advocate for you. And if anybody else watching wants to know more about this, please reach out to either Alyse or myself, and I will get you in contact with Alyse. The other thing I want to talk about this time, and I'm going to have you back because I want to talk about you being a Black female founder also, or a Black female working in technology. I really want to have you back to talk about that. But I would love for you to talk about how this resource can help employers and employees. So please talk about that a little bit, how employers can benefit from understanding CareCopilot, their mission, and what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Fortunately, I think, especially in this post-pandemic age, employers are more and more awake to this dynamic where, people have such full and rich lives outside of their working lives. And most employees are taking care of somebody. It's either a child,
Right.
it might be an aging parent, it might be a spouse, it might even be multiple people at the same time. The so-called sandwich generation. And, the most important thing that I think employers can do is really stay on top of that acknowledgement that most employees are taking care of someone, and do the best that they can to provide some kind of tangible resource or support for those employees. So, for example, I know that some employers are leveraging Bright Horizons that provides, both childcare and elder care backup solutions. CareCopilot is not selling into employers quite yet, but we will be likely sometime next year. So if you're an employer who's really passionate about helping your employees with elder care, please get in touch with me. We'd love to chat with you, welcome you into the pilot. And it really comes down to providing employees with options and with resources. Because even from a practical standpoint, so much of the help that loved ones need has to be executed on during the day. You got to schedule those doctor's appointments during the day. Mom or dad might fall and need help during the day. And so I think it's really critical for employers to provide those resources purely from a retention standpoint. Even if it's not, altruistic, it really does make an impact on retention. People leave the workforce all the time in order to take care of loved ones.
Right. It's so important for us to be aware of this need, and to maybe, I think more importantly now for us, for the working generation, to prepare for this, that it's coming. If your parents are still alive and in retirement age, there will come a time when they're going to require extra help. And sometimes it's more than just putting them, and I hate to say that because it sounds so harsh, just putting them in assisted living. It's a little bit more, and I can tell you, after going through that process, it is not cheap. It is not affordable. There is nothing affordable about assisted living. It drained every resource that my bonus mom had, every single resource, until she had nothing left. And then we had to apply for Medicaid. And luckily she was in a facility long enough that they were in a place where they said, okay, she's, what do they call it? Grandfathered in type situation, where because she had paid so much into the facility, they were going to accept her Medicaid and Medicare as payment in full. So not in full. She still has to pay a little bit out of, most of her Social Security goes right to pay for the facility. So it's really trying financially. It's draining emotionally, mentally. When I remember falling into bed every night and just completely exhausted because my brain was consistently working to make sure that her needs were cared for. And I have stated over and over again that it is every bit as hard, if not harder, than having a newborn. Every bit is hard. Every bit is draining on everything about me, emotionally, financially, socially. Everything about it was as hard. And I don't think that we are aware enough about that. I don't think that as a people, as the working generation, that we understand this. And the one thing that really stood out for me is I do not want my children to go through what I went through.
Mhm.
I want to be prepared in a way that they don't have to worry about all this, and they don't have to go through everything that I went through, that they can turn to a resource like CareCopilot, or I can begin to build like my portfolio through CareCopilot to build those resources for my kids when it comes to time. So, I think what a wonderful effort on your part. I'm excited to watch you grow and to provide more. And if viewers, listeners want to learn more, how could they do this? Is it simply by going to the website?
Yep, check out carecopilot.co, and there is a contact page where you can send a message to the team. I read every message that we get through that.
Great.
And yeah, feel free to get in touch with me if you're out there. And, even if anyone is out there, if you're not in the New York City area, but you just want to speak with someone who's been through this before to get a lay of the land, feel free to send me a message through the website. I speak with families about this all day, every day, just to sort of brainstorm and receive validation that you're not crazy, that it
Right.
really is this hard. I'm always happy to do that for families as well.
And I know that CareCopilot is in a limited location right now, but you are expanding nationally, right? Is that what I understand? Tell us a little bit about that. What your resources are available for what area now, and then how are you growing?
Yeah, absolutely. So all families can go on carecopilot.co and take a part in the CareCopilot community and receive some high-level resources, videos, scripts, and more. If families want that additional in-person support from our dedicated CareCopilots, that's only in New York City right now, but we are quickly branching out into the
Right.
tri-state area. We have a growing contingent in the Chicago area, so definitely coming to a city near you soon.
Well, let me know when you're in Southern California, when you're ready to hit the other coast. I won't call it the
Yes.
right or the left coast. We're going to call it the other coast. And I would be happy to help support that in any way I can. And I look forward to having you back on the show in the new year. I would love to chat with you about being a Black female founder. Wow.
Yes.
I can imagine that you have your own share of challenges just with that. I look forward to talking to you more about that. I mean, you hinted at it with your time at Venmo being the only Black female engineer there. So interesting stories to come, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I definitely have some stories for you, so we will
Good.
be sure to talk about that in the new year.
That's amazing, Alyse. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll put in the bio of the show and also in the comments the resource to share. And I will also pull out one of the blogs and share that there, in particular, the blog that you spoke about today. And thank you for doing this. I know it's a passion project for you, but not everybody follows their passion. So I just want to thank you all over for being here and sharing what you're doing, and also for the work that you do.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me.
We'll see you soon. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We'll see you after the holiday.